to another Patreon vlog. So this one was a little unexpected, even for me. As you will have just seen, I just spent the weekend in New York City, and it was a very last minute trip. I was with Doug, my husband, and I kind of made a joke about how this was Thursday night. How I just kind of wanted to jump on a plane and go to New York because a lot of my friends were going to be there, and I mean, I already have friends in New York, and it would just be really great to just jump on a plane and go see everybody. And he said, do it. So we set a budget. I was like, okay, if I can find a flight and a hotel for this price, I'm going. And I couldn't find that, but I was talking to my friends Jacqueline and Julie, Jacqueline of Brooklyn Knit Folk and Julie of Sweet Sparrow, both yarns and the podcast. And Jacqueline said, well, you can just stay with me. Okay, so, let's scoot up a little bit. So I went back in and I found a flight under our budget and booked it. And I left my house at, I don't know, like 12:30 and headed to New York. And it was such a whirlwind. So I planned this trip Thursday night, left early Friday afternoon, and I got back around 2 o'clock on Sunday. So it was a very quick trip. No real agenda. I knew I wanted to go to Vogue just for a little bit, Vogue Knitting Live in New York City. And this was my third time going. My first time happened to be on my honeymoon, which was also not planned. But I found out that Vogue was the same weekend that we were going to be there for our honeymoon, and I asked my husband Doug if he wanted to go, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went for a little bit then, and then last year I went as my first solo trip, and I stayed with Jacqueline again, and we went on Saturday, and that was really great. And this year I went by myself to Vogue, and I was only there for maybe an hour and a half, and I got to run into so many of you, which was so great. But I know I also missed a lot of people, so if I missed you, I'm sorry. But there's something about Vogue. It's very overwhelming. It's a very small space, and there's a lot of people, and it gets really hot, and it's very loud, and I don't know, there's also like this weird urgency at Vogue of having to get the right yarn and all of that stuff, and it's just a little overwhelming for me. It's a lot, but the whole reason I even went to Vogue was to see the people. Didn't go to shop. I just wanted to see my friends. So I was able to do that. And I was able to meet Hohi Locatelli, which was just, like it's Hohi. So it was really great. I was a little nervous to go say hi to her, but I did. And it was just really great. And I found out she watches my podcast, which was crazy. So if you're watching this, Hohi, hi. I don't know if I'm going to put this particular vlog on YouTube eventually. I'm not sure yet. I think I want to keep this just for you patrons, but I'm not sure. So this might make its way to YouTube in the next few weeks, or it might just stay here. So yeah, that was just insane. So yes, so Friday I land at LaGuardia, and I take a taxi to Brooklyn to Jacqueline's apartment, and my taxi driver took me the longest, most indirect way possible. So instead of driving through Queens to Brooklyn, he took me up through the Bronx and down the entire island of Manhattan and through Brooklyn. So it took like an hour and a half as opposed to the 40 minutes it was supposed to take. So that was interesting, but I did get a lot of really great footage from the cab, and I got to see just the east side of the island, which was really great. Yeah, so we did that, and then when I got to Jacqueline's, we decided to go into the city. We thought about going to the marketplace for a little bit, but it was going to be closed pretty soon after we got there, and we just didn't think it was worth it because it's pretty pricey to get into Vogue. So we got tacos and margaritas instead, which was a great decision. It was so much fun. Julie met up with us for some dinner, and then Jacqueline and I headed to Mina of the Knitting Expat, her hotel room, for a knit night where it was Jacqueline, me, Mina, and Emily. And yeah, it was just really great to talk with three of my favorite people in the industry and just chat about life and kids and knitting, and it was really great. So that was a lot of fun. Then Jacqueline and I went home, and then Saturday woke up, grabbed coffee with Jacqueline, and she walked me to the subway, and I went to Vogue, and then I met up with them at a coffee shop in like the West Village area by NYU. But on my way, I broke my phone, but it wasn't my fault. So it's a little distracting. So I use my front-facing camera on my phone so that I know what is being shown, how things look, how color looks while I'm vlogging or podcasting. And it's a little distracting because it's very cracked, but it's cracked in very strategic places. So the camera's fine, the speaker for phone calls is fine, my home button works. It's just like the bottom half of my screen is a little much, so I'm eventually going to get a new phone. But what happened is I got off the subway and I wanted to make sure I was walking in the correct direction, so I stood against a wall like you should do if you're in New York or literally any city. It's just courteous, don't block sidewalks. So stood up like kind of in a doorway against a wall, and then all of a sudden this guy comes running full speed, bumps into me, and just keeps screaming sorry at me as my phone shattered on the sidewalk in front of me. And it's not like he didn't have room. There was like a good 10 feet of sidewalk. So it was very frustrating, but it's fine. I'm okay. My phone still works. It's a little annoying, but it's functional. And like, we just paid off my phone. I've been saving for a new one. Like, it's just, it all works out. So a little bit of an annoyance, but it could have been so much worse. Like, my phone could have stopped working, and my plane ticket was on my phone. Like, so it was just the best possible way that happened. So I was mad for about 10 minutes, and I talked it through with Doug, and then I got coffee and I knit, and it was snowing. And if you don't know me, there's like 3 things you should know about me. I love coffee, knitting, but most of all, snow. Cold weather is my absolute favorite. January is my favorite month of the year. I got married in January. Snow is the absolute best. If you hear Pug snores, Esther's laying in the sunlight taking a snooze. She snores very loudly. But snow just brings this calm over me. I can't describe it. It's very cheesy, but I've loved it my entire life, and I'm just so much happier when it's cold and it's snowy. We have probably about 2 inches on the ground right now, and I was a little bummed because we were getting a snowstorm while I was in New York and Michigan, and I was a little nervous that I was not going to see snow because we've only had 1 snowstorm this year, and that's really rare for Michigan weather. So I was a little disappointed that I was going to miss some snow, but it snowed in New York, and that was the most magical thing. So after we had coffee and knit for a few hours, we walked around Washington Square Park, which I love. I love the area by NYU. It's just a dream. So we walked around there, and I just felt like such a dork because I could not stop smiling, and I like cried for a little bit, and it was just the most perfect day. And we finished our day with a glass of wine and some pasta at Osteria 57, and Jacqueline and I had cacio e pepe, and Julie had some mushroom pasta dish, and it just was all so good and lovely and cozy, and it was perfect. And then Jacqueline and I went back to her apartment, and we watched To the Boys I've Loved Before, which I haven't seen. I think that's what it's called. But it's super cute. It's super good. I know I'm really late to the party of watching it. But I don't have time to watch movies by myself. So I'm really glad that I finally got to see it. And we just sat and knit and watched The Office for a little bit afterwards. And then it was time to go to bed. And then the next morning we hung out for about an hour. And then I caught a ride to the airport. And then I came home. And the best, the best part of this is on the way home, I was really not looking forward to the ride home. So the plane ride isn't that long. It's usually about an hour and a half plane ride, which isn't bad. We got to the city in less than an hour. It took 56 minutes, which was amazing. But it was supposed to take like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I was like, that's fine. But I had the center seat on a booked, like completely full plane. So I was not really looking forward to it. And I walked on the plane and I squeezed by my roommate, who was just the nicest old man. And he kept joking around that, hey, maybe we're going to luck out. And I was like, well, they said it's a full flight. And, they were checking bags that, like checking carry-ons because there wasn't going to be enough room in the overhead bins. And I was like, yeah, but it's a full flight. Like, it's fine. The center seat sucks, but it is what it is. And then they closed the doors and our window seat person did not come. So I just looked at him and I was like, I'm gonna sit at the window seat, which is my favorite spot on a plane. And that we had a nice seat between us, and it was just so nice. Oh, it was so good. And I was just like in pure bliss from the days before. And I had a little glass of Coke and some Cheez-Its, and just listening to a true crime podcast. I was listening to The Last Podcast on the Left, which is not for everybody. Sometimes it's too much for me. They're very, they're very rude sometimes, and their humor is can get a little rough and dirty and just kind of gross. And they walk a very fine line between like appropriate comedy while talking about murder and just being incredibly awful. Sometimes they've gotten a lot better over the years, but I really enjoy them, especially when they do deep dives into cults or the occult, or just sometimes their deep dives into serial killers are really good. Like they did an H.H. Holmes deep dive. That was a few parts. They did I'm trying to think of like what episodes I really enjoyed. They did a couple episodes on Bonnie and Clyde, which was really cool. So I like the lighter ones. Sometimes they're heavier ones, especially when they're older. Like their JonBenet Ramsey episodes are not great. And they even admit that now. They're like, yeah, we should probably redo that because it's bad. Like we were not thinking. So stuff like that. But I don't know. I really like them. And I also just kind of love listening to conspiracy theories. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just think it's interesting how people think and how certain things can seem to be connected. It's just interesting. So like they did a 9/11 episode, which was really interesting, and I also thought was done very well because they did the day, the something, and then the conspiracy. So they ended with the conspiracy, and they were like, listen, we know, like, whatever, but here they are. And so that was really great. But right now, they're doing a deep dive into the Heaven's Gate cult. Excuse me. And they did Heaven's Gate, and it was like episode 35 or whatever, and they're in the 300s now. And it's just so good. They do so much research for this podcast. I don't know I'm talking about this so much, but I really enjoy it. But I will say, go into it knowing that you might get mad. I don't know. I enjoy it. It's one of the podcasts I work out to pretty frequently. I don't know. It's just one of those things. So I was listening to that and just knitting away. So, what projects did I bring on this trip? I brought 2. I almost brought 3, but I'm glad I stuck with these 2 because I got a lot done. So the first thing I brought was my second sock. So here's the first in last Christmas, which was from my advent calendar. It is day 25. It was the full skein this year. I don't know how the lighting is because it's just really bright. The snow is reflecting so much. But I started sock number 2, eye magic loop, so it's always a little weird when you get it out of a bag. So here is, there it is. Okay, that's much better. Here is sock number 2. And I did the entirety of this on the plane there. So, and a little bit while I was waiting to board. So that is the sock that I took, and it's so nice to have socks on the go again. I feel like I mention it every time I talk about socks, but I really enjoy it. And this is a bento bag from Fringe, and I just really love it. Super cute. And then the main thing that I worked on was my woodwardia. So last time you saw this, I had not separated for the sleeves yet, so I separated for the sleeves before I left, and I've knit about 8.5, 9 inches past the armhole, and that is how long the sweater is supposed to be. Like, if I was knitting to the pattern, my sweater would be done. This would be it. But I tried it on, and I don't like how cropped it is, and I already knew I wasn't going to, but I wanted to check the fit, and it fits perfectly, and it drapes really well, and I love the color, and so I'm really excited. I'm going to knit probably about 4 more inches, and then do the ribbing. But yes, so that's going really well. This is the My Jam colorway on my DK base, in case you didn't know. And I just love how it's going. I have been alternating skeins pretty frequently. I'm not at the moment, just because it was a little too fiddly. And I had some splices in the yarn, which is fine because that's to be expected, but I had 2 in one cake. And I'm glad it's my cake and not someone else's, but that's also industry standard and it's fine. So it's just a little annoying, so that. But basically, these 2 cakes, I'm assuming, will finish out the body. And then I have 3 skeins I haven't skeined up yet. So all I have left to do after this are the sleeves and the collar. So that's that. That's what I worked on while I was there. And then I did make a purchase. I was not planning on it, but every time I asked someone, what is this yarn? Everyone said barnyard knits. So I bought some barnyard knits. Now I think one of these is going to be a part of my 6,000 subscriber giveaway. So I think that will be this one, which is Old Coin, and it's this beautiful minty green with copper oranges and dark gray black speckles, and it's just gorgeous. This is the sock fingering, so it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, barnyard knits. I know it's blowing out, but so I think this is going to be a giveaway because I couldn't stop staring at it. So I hope you all like it too. And then the one that I'm keeping for myself, and it's going to become a ripple bralette, is this is granite on the same base. So here it is. I saw a sample of a design that Mina Phillip, Knitting Expat, is creating, and it was out of this colorway, and once I saw it, I was like, okay, I need to get that yarn tomorrow. So that's all I bought, and one of them is for you, which will be on the YouTube channel. Yeah, I love it. I'm just really excited to have this here. Yes, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I really need to talk about. That was really the past 2 weeks, that's really the big thing. And it's funny because Doug and I were supposed to go on vacation this week, but he is going, he has some business stuff next weekend, so we decided instead of cutting our vacation short, we would just go next week. So that's also coming, so that will probably be what the next vlog is about, and I will be going to Wool and Honey, so I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I think that's it. So I hope you all are having a wonderful time. Thank you so much for supporting me here on Patreon and making all of these things possible. I could not do it without you, and I hope you enjoy me being able to bring these events and travels to you. Yeah, it just means so much. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful 2 weeks until I post another vlog, and I will see you around. Bye!